Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taramina.
Welcome to OAA Now. Here I'm Sammy Taramina, blog around the OAA, the host of Last Week Brain Cells, and the host between Terminas and Orion Television. I'd like to welcome those watching on Local Voice on SoundCloud and those watching on Orion Television. A lot to look at this week here on this edition of the podcast. We're going to talk about, we're going to talk, obviously, Lake Orion's one of the teams we got to speak about. And, is there a chance they could turn this thing around? I mean, that is the big question there. A&T right now is also at 1-4. I just don't know if I see them having a turnaround year this year. Also, we're going to talk about Waterford Kettering football. Obviously, the one of the big news of the day here. Brian Foss from Hometown Life broke this story down. That's something we're going to break down too on this edition of the podcast. Is where does Waterford Kettering go from here after recently changing coaches, and we're going to break a lot of this stuff down on this week's edition, and there's a lot to really look at. Let's go to our main story here, our big story here, and it's Brian Barnes. Brian Barnes forced out at Waterford Kettering. Of course, he became the new athletic director at Madison Heights Bishop Foley. Obviously, he was the head coach for the Ventures from 2016 to 2023, leading to 2 Catholic League Prep Bowl titles, along with an undefeated year in 2022. Barnes really wanted to stay at Waterford Kettering. He really wanted to stay at Kettering. He had the option to make it work, but the Waterford School District decided not to go along with it and let him go after their Week 4 game against South Lyon East, where Kettering fell 51-14 to the Cougars on Friday night. So Cullen Conway is the interim coach over there at Waterford Kettering. The biggest problem that he's going to have to deal with is their defense. Their defense has been completely god-awful. So, and it was an interesting interview. Interesting comments from Barnes to Brian Fossum. Obviously, he wanted to stay. He wanted to work at Foley during the day and then go to Kettering for football practices, but the Waterford School District said no to that. And the reason why I would say maybe could be a conflict of interest, a conflict of interest. And, and I totally get what they're trying to say here. But, here's a guy that wanted to make it work, but unfortunately, it wasn't the case. And Barnes now no longer the coach at Waterford Kettering. So this is going to be really interesting, especially with Kettering coming into the OAA in about 2 months, in about November, because they're going to be in for the winter sports in the league. So it's a really interesting dynamic considering the season that Waterford Kettering's having this year. So far, they're 0-4. Barnes last year led Kettering to a 2-7 year. They were one win against their arch rival Waterford Mott away from making the playoffs. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. And Kettering missed out on the playoffs. So, so I'm curious to see what's going to happen here. I mean, what is going to happen with Waterford Kettering, considering that Coach Barnes is no longer there. So it'll be something to keep an eye on, especially this offseason, especially where Kettering's going to be in their first year in the OAA. Next year, first year back in the OAA. I mean, previously they were in the league, but then they left. So it'll be something to keep an eye on is, what's the fallout going to be after Coach Barnes is no longer there? Can Kettering turn this thing around? Can they do it? I mean, there's just so many question marks when you look at Waterford Kettering right now, and right now their defense has not been very good. Offensively, they've not been very good. I mean, right now there's some issues right now that they've got to address. And right now, when you look at it, and then you add this to the equation that Coach Barnes is no longer there at Waterford Kettering. I mean, like he did the right protocols. He let Allison Satoris, the athletic director at Waterford Kettering, know that when he became the new athletic director at Madison Heights Bishop Foley. And obviously, I totally get the other side of things. It's similar to what happened with Todd Negocian when he became new athletic director of Stony Creek. And then he was formerly the boys basketball coach at North Farmington. And it's hard. It's really hard, especially when you're an athletic director at one school and then he coached at another school. So I totally understand the school district side of things, but I also understand the coach's perspective of let's try to make this work. I want to try to make it work, and I want to try to do it. And unfortunately, the school district said, it'd be hard on you to drive every day from Madison Heights to Waterford, especially when you look at the traffic situation. So I totally understand the Waterford School District side of things when it comes to, when it came to this. But then also Coach Barnes trying to make it work, which I applaud him for trying to do that. Now will Coach Barnes coach again? I mean, it'll be interesting to see if he does coach again. I mean, if he coaches at Madison Heights Bishop Foley or at another school, he's a proven winner. He's a proven football coach. I mean, obviously, he's a proven coach. So there are avenues for him. But I know his first job right now is to focus on being the athletic director at Madison Heights Bishop Foley, and we'll go from there. I think that's really what his thought process is right now. You got to wonder what's next for Waterford Kettering. I mean, obviously, there are a lot of challenges ahead. Can they shore up the defense? Can their interim coach, Colin Conway, can he right the ship? Can he right the ship over there at Waterford Kettering? Considering, the successes that Coach Barnes has done, especially when you look at the program's strength, what he's done over there at Waterford Kettering. There's just a lot of question marks to really keep an eye on with Kettering going forward is, now they've got some questions going into the future. There is some big time questions, and can they address it? I mean, that's really where they've got to address. And there's so many question marks with Waterford Kettering heading in the future, especially next year when they are heading into the OAA to compete, most likely probably be in the gold division next year. So it'll be interesting to see how Waterford Kettering is going to look. Do they remove the interim tag on Conway, or do they have to completely start anew again? And we know that Kettering has had a lot of changeover as a program, and that's an area of concern where, when you don't have coaching stability, you're going to lose kids. You're going to lose interest in football. And, and that's a very dangerous spot if you're Allison Satoris and, the athletic director of Waterford Kettering, because now a lot of changeover means kids are going to have to learn a new system. They're going to have to learn a new adjustment. Transition period is going to have to be there. I mean, there's just so many challenges, when you are looking at a new coach, especially for a coach who has been forced to step down mid-season. So there's just a lot of question marks surrounding Waterford Kettering, and I think that's something to really, really keep an eye on as we head forward. So it'll be something to keep an eye on. How does Kettering adjust to the coaching change? How do they adjust to, is Cullen Conway the right guy there? Can he fix this quickly? Can he fix the defense? Can he keep the offense on the field, give them more points? So there's just so many question marks that Waterford Kettering needs, and it'll be something to keep an eye on as we head forward there. So it'll be something to keep an eye on there with Waterford Kettering. So we'll keep an eye on it. As we do, we're going to see what happens. Now let's look at recapping week 4. And you gotta look at recapping, of course. We're gonna start with the red first. When you look at Adams and Oxford, obviously the impact of one player coming back makes a big difference. And you look at, of course, in the game between Adams and Oxford, having Rylan Waters back is a big, big deal. And you look at the score at the end of the first half, it was 6-6 at halftime. Both teams were playing well defensively. But then Rylan Waters came in and basically just took over, put his stamp in the second half. Adams outscored Oxford 27-0. Ended up winning 33-6. So you think about the impact of Rylan Waters. Obviously, when you look at Adams and you think about, obviously, Nolan Ferris's injury, you look at, obviously, you look at, of course, the quarterback situation at Adams. I know they have Brady Lindstrom over there. Lindstrom, only a junior. I know he's young still. But I'm not being mean to Mr. Lindstrom at all. Rylan Waters is just a different quarterback. Obviously, he's going to Ferris next year, but you look at what he brings to you on both sides of football. Rylan is one of those guys that can just take over a game by himself. You could tell his presence was truly missed against West Bloomfield. It was truly missed. And with Waters in the lineup, Adams is a completely different team. They pretty much are. And it showed. It really showed in that game. It really showed that, with Waters in there, he makes a big difference for this team. On both sides, offensively, defensively, makes a big difference. Very impressed with Adams' defense, how they shut down Jack Hendricks. I was really impressed. And Oxford's vaunted running game. I was really impressed that they did that. And then, they played time possession football and got 27 points. So, you got to think about where Adams is right now. Adams is in a nice spot right now. With Oxford, you're 2-2. Interesting game with Lake Orion looming this week. Lake Orion, we know about their struggles. We know that they've been struggling. So it'll be very interesting to see how that matchup goes, particularly the Orion-Oxford matchup. I think that's going to be really interesting. Now, we don't know Lake Orion's injury situation yet. We don't know what's going on with them. We just don't know. So, but for Adams, Adams right now is righting the ship right now. Waters back. Big one looming with Clarkston. And they're going to need him against Clarkston. So it'll be very interesting to see how that matchup goes between the Highlanders and Wolves. That'll be a good matchup. I think. Clarkston really had no issue with Troy, 41-0. Clarkston obviously when you have a blowout like that, it gives you a chance to look at backups, look at backups and see how they do for the future of your program. So it was a good opportunity for Coach Justin Pintar to rest both Bowman brothers, Alex Wachenko. A couple of those players have been playing every day. You know what I mean? Like, give them a break and give a second or third team guy a chance to play. And really, that's where for Clarkson, that game was more about using depth, just getting your depth ready for maybe a long postseason run, giving them a chance to play. So if you're Coach Justin Pintar, you got to be pretty pleased with the success, that game gave you. Basically, you just went in there and took care of business. Gives your backups a chance to play. And to see what you got, especially heading into next year and then also heading into 2 years and 3 years from now. Seeing what you got. And, so that was a good thing for if you're Justin Pintar, and also on the Wolves staff, to really give your backups an opportunity to play, to see what you have coming up within the program, and save your athletes, give them like a week, give them like an extra couple of quarters of rest, because you're going to need them throughout the rest of the year when you look at when that schedule does get tougher. And, maybe in the postseason, when you look at what Clarkson's going to have, because to me, Clarkson, bottom line, they're a playoff team. They are a playoff team. They got Adams coming up. So that'll be a really interesting game. So it'll be interesting to see how Clarkston handles this, because I think they got a special going on there at Clarkston. I know when they played Harper Woods, they honored they wore a special jersey for that game. I really honestly loved those uniforms that they had. The current blues they have this year, I don't like those at all. I don't even like their white uniforms at all. I really don't. Even if they went with blue pants or yellow pants, to me, I just think that the uniform design Clarkson has, it just doesn't look good on them at all. That's the only criticism I have of Clarkson, is their uniforms. That's the only issue I have. I think right now this team, Clarkson, defensively, they look solid. Offensively, they look good. So right now, if I had to say with Clarkson, I'm going to talk Troy in the blue segment here, but I think right now with Clarkson, they're right now clicking on all cylinders. So we'll see what happens. Then we have West Bloomfield 33, Lake Orion 16. When I look at this game, I think about, there was really two plays that I do question Lake Orion in that game. There were two of them. The first one, you could have gone either way. It was a 4th and 2 in the third quarter. If you're Lake Orion, if you're Coach Chris Bell, normally, and I've known Coach Bell for almost nearly 20 years, and normally he's a very aggressive play caller. So he decided to go for a punt on 4th and 2, which to me, I thought, okay, that's fine. You know what I mean? As long as you don't kick it to one of their athletes. Truth be told, punter kicks it to their punt returner, takes it to the house. 50-yard touchdown to the house. That literally was icing on the cake in that game. The play that's going to get me most upset, and this is the second one. This is what's going to get me most upset. In the first half, late in the second quarter, you're driving at the 2-yard line. You're driving at the 2-yard line. Brody Thompson's doing a really good job moving the ball down the field. Moving the ball down. You have a chance at the 2-yard line, and especially against the Lakers defense that's been just dominant all year long. I mean, West Bloomfield's defense is one of the most legit defenses in the state. But to put in Anderson Adams after a timeout, and he fumbles the snap, and West Bloomfield recovers. So now you gotta wonder that if Brody Thompson's in there, does Lake Orion score? Do they make it a 17-13 game instead of going at halftime down 13-10? That changes the whole complexion. One decision. I don't really criticize Coach Chris Bell on this podcast, but that play, you got to wonder. If Thompson was in that play at the 2-yard line, if he was in that play, does he score? I mean, what was the play call? What was it? A lot of questions on that play. People ask me, should I go all Mike Valenti? I'm not going here on this. Because you think about it, that call literally changed the entire game. It literally did. And West Bloomfield and West Bloomfield ended up going on they went on a 20-0 run after that. After that call, 20-0. Because it was 13-10 at halftime. It was 33-10 almost late in the fourth quarter. So now you got to think about this. Lake Orion sits 0-4 for the first time since 1980. Almost 45 years. Who would have ever thought it? Who would have ever thought it? And yet this team still has a chance. They still have a chance. Defense has not been very good. They've changed coordinators. Offensively, they've not been very good. Obviously, injuries. I mean, obviously, you look at that game with West Bloomfield play calling. That one in the first half really has me irritated. The punt in the third quarter, I don't really have an issue with. I just kind of wish it was a different style punt. So really, with Lake Orion right now, and you say it best, you're going through a derecho right now. Lake Orion, of course, everybody in Lake Orion remembers the 2014 derecho. Everybody remembers that. And was it 2014 or 2012? I think it was one of those 2 years. But it was when a violent storm went into Lake Orion. So you kind of think, what does that storm mean for Lake Orion? They're just going through it right now. The injury bug, inconsistencies, doubt. I think right now, this Lake Orion team's got a lot of doubt right now. And I said this before the season started. The mental psyche of this team was my biggest concern. And it's showing its ugly head. So there's some questions. But yet, this team still has a chance. They still have a chance. Then in West Bloomfield's case, you look at with West Bloomfield, they just took care of business. I mean, Jamal Shakespeare had a nice game. Obi Duru, I thought, played well. I thought, their defense, there's a reason why they're one of the best in the entire state. They're good, but they're senior heavy. So there's some questions for West Bloomfield for Coach Jack Hilbers into the future. But they look good. They really look good. And, I'll be curious to see what West Bloomfield does going forward. I mean, they look the part. They do. So, see what happens. These are two teams going on different directions right now. West Bloomfield going on the way up. Lake Orion. Can this team find it? Because they're running out of time. They're running out of time. A couple questionable play calls. Really. And I know there's a lot of people in the community questioning his team right now. So, we'll see what happens. Let's go to the white here. When you look at the white, A&T played Lowell, of course, in a non-conference game. Lowell just hammered A&T 40-8 on Friday night. It kind of like a book from the Dean family basically showed his head in Southfield. You look at that game, you say to yourself, A&T is not very good this year. They really not. I kind of thought heading into the year, with A&T, they would be better. I thought they would be. It, to me, looks like that rebuild looks to be more longer thought out, processed than people could give it credit for. If people thought A&T would turn this thing around in 1 year, you'd be kidding yourself. I know Coach Keith McKenzie. He's got to be just going like, what's going on right now? What is going on right now? I'll tell you what's going on. You're struggling. You are really struggling right now. Lowell is one of the top teams in the state in the west side. You played East Kentwood week 1. You got destroyed week 1 by East Kentwood. Week 2, and then your other non-conference game, then you got whooped by West Bloomfield. Then you lost to Stony Creek. And now you got whooped by Lowell. You still got to play Groves. You still got to play Harper Woods. You still got to play Chippewa. You still got to play Chippewa Valley to close out the year. It's not looking good. It's not looking good. So A&T, they got some big time question marks. They've got some serious question marks. But it's not looking good for A&T. People ask me, if you look at teams that are 0-4 right now, either Lake Orion or A&T can turn it around. I would tell them right now, Lake Orion's got a more better chance to turn things around than A&T does. And that's what I'm saying right now. Lake Orion, they've got some things to figure out. A&T, they got some real things to figure out. So we'll see where they're at. A team I was mostly shocked with was Rochester. Rochester came off an emotional 23-21 win against Lake Orion last week, prior to. Then they play Groves and completely lay an egg. They completely lay an egg. 35-7. Who would have ever thought that would be the case? To me, that is more of a letdown by Rochester than it is Groves. And you look at, yes, the win against Lake Orion. It was their first since 1996. But you have the rest of your season to go. You still have to play Stony Creek. You still have to play Harper Woods. And for you to lay an egg in a game, probably the third place game in your division, and you play like that? You play like that? How? How is it possible? You know, Groves is a young team. They're very young. They lost the 3/4 of their roster from a team that went to state semifinals a year ago. But for you to only score 7 points? Now, I get Matt Dykey's only a sophomore. But you got players on that roster. You have experience. Where was the line? Where was both lines? And especially, where was the defense in this game? Where was it? Rochester's a hard team to figure out. They're different at home than they are on the road. I mean, when they played Adams, it was 31 points. I know they had that win against Fraser, which is big. But then, of course, the Lake Orion win was at home. And then you lay an egg against Groves. That game, I'm not going to say that game was about Groves. But the Groves win. I give credit to Groves. They played good, played well. But I think that loss is more on Rochester, considering the emotional letdown that the Falcons had, that Rochester had. The emotional win against Lake Orion, and then the fact that they have an emotional letdown. So now where does Rochester go from here? Got Stony Creek this week, and we know they're not going to be in a good mood. I mean, for Groves, this is big for them, but they got West Bloomfield coming up. Oh, boy. For me, I tell Coach Flaherty, good luck. Because West Bloomfield is right now stewing with confidence right now. And I know Tyler Keith will be looking forward to that game. So that'll be interesting to see. But to me, that game was more about Rochester than it was Groves. And I'm saying that because Rochester was on sky high when they beat Lake Orion. And now, look where they're at right now. Game of the day was Harper Woods and Stony Creek. This ended up being a really good game. It went down to the final 6 seconds. Where Stony Creek coach Rick Powell decided to go for 2 in the win. Thinking like, maybe have that same magic like you did last year against Rochester. But they didn't get it. Harper Woods stopped them. And then they recovered the onside kick, which eventually gave the Pioneers a 28-27 win. To me, this was the white championship game. Dakota Grant played well. He had 3 touchdowns. Thought Nate Rushville was solid. But also, you got to give Stony Creek credit. They fought in this game. They battled. It was almost similar to the game last year at Harper Woods. Almost similar. But Powell decided to go for the win. And I don't question that decision at all. I kind of would have thought, honestly, that if he went for the tie to force overtime, I think, and I would take my chances in overtime, I think that could have been the better avenue. But Powell decided to go for the win in that instance because they were riding off the emotions. If you go overtime in that game, you kind of think about it's going to put a lot more pressure. It's going to put the pressure on Harper Woods. It's going to put, for them to respond. So I kind of thought, honestly, maybe going for one would have been the better scenario for Coach Powell and Stony Creek. I think it would have been the better case scenario, but it ended up going. But Harper Woods, they found a way to survive. They found a way to survive, and they needed every single ounce of that game to survive. It'll benefit them, that's for sure. It'll benefit them. Right now, Harper Woods is the top team in Division 4 when it comes to playoff points. That basically means everything goes through Harper Woods. For Coach Oden, that's really going to be the stepping point. For me, if I was Harper Woods, I would never wear white helmets again. You go all white out for that look. You go white top, white pants, white helmet? I don't know about the uniform design there for that one. I don't know. But you got to give Stony Creek a lot of credit for battling in that game. You got to give them. That. I did predict Stony Creek would win the division, even over Harper Woods, because I just felt that it was going to be a really tough game for Harper Woods, and I was right. It was going to be a tough game. But the Pioneers found a way and survived. So, you look at that division right now, Harper Woods controls it. Stony Creek right now second. Grove's third, Rochester fourth, A&T fifth. So, that's really what the case is right now in the white. Red right now, I would say Clarkston, West Bloomfield, Clarkston, West Bloomfield, Adams, Oxford, Lake Orion right now in the red. So we'll see how that plays out this week. Then let's go to the blue. Talk Troy's case, obviously, earlier with Clarkston. Troy, it's going to be rough for Troy against Clarkston. Obviously, you look at the offense that, Troy's still a pretty young team. They still control their own destiny. I just think when you look at that game, it was going to be a tall task for Troy against Clarkston, and it proved to be that was the case. So they still control their own destiny in the blue, but there's going to be some challengers right now. When you look at a team like Seaholm, who I think's been playing really good football, and then Farmington, other than that hiccup against Holly, Farmington's really been playing good football also lately. So those are two teams that are really playing right now, I would say, the best football in the division right now. So you look at, of course, the other games in the division. You got to look at North Farmington 49-7 over Bloomfield Hills. Man, was the Raiders mad. It had to be. After down 35-0 at one point to your arch rival. That says something right there. That kind of tells you the emotional swing that loss to North Farmington really gave them. Really was. So you kind of think about it with North Farmington, and couple years ago, it was Bloomfield Hills that knocked North Farmington out of the playoffs. I don't think the Raiders forgotten that. And yes, it's a different Bloomfield Hills team with the new coach and Scott Merchant, new system, going through it. They really laid a whooping on Bloomfield Hills. They really did. So it kind of tells you the direction where both programs are right now. North Farmington, with the way that team is, Terrence James, obviously, playing different positions right now. Elijah Cobb really getting comfortable at quarterback. Leland Hollingsworth's been playing well at running back. They're getting good line play. Defense has been solid. So really, there's a lot of encouragement right now with North Farmington, the way they're playing. Then on Bloomfield Hills' case, you really think about just the process, what they're going through right now. They're going through a lot right now. They are going through a lot. And I know there's a transition period and there has to happen during the year. That's what's going on right now at Bloomfield Hills. Transition period. That's what they're going through. They're going through that transition period, and it has to happen during the season. It has to happen during the year. Farmington 38, Troy Athens 14. It was Troy Athens' homecoming. I've got to talk Athens first. This defense is the reason why Troy Athens will not make the playoffs this year. This defense. How do you describe this defense? They have given up points in bunches. They have not looked good. They have not looked very good at all. The offense, to me, is not the issue. It's this defense. This defense, coming into the year, there were a lot of questions with Athens, especially on the defensive side of the football. Despite having a lot of experience on that side of the football, they have not gotten the job done. That's the bottom line. They have not gotten it done. And they're the reason why they're going to miss out in the playoffs. Pressure's got to be on Tom Cook now. It has to be. I don't know what's going on with that program. I really don't know what's going on. But something's wrong with Troy Athens right now. Something's wrong. And they have a proven star player, Nathan Pickett. He's going to Eastern Michigan. It's not the issue. It's their defensive scheme's the issue over there. That's your issue. Farmington, they figured some things out since that loss to Holly. They have really figured some things out. Exploded against North Farmington. Andy Bailey's been playing well. Pesci, their starting quarterback's really been playing well. Coach Jason Albrecht's got that team heading in the right direction. Really does. But you look at Farmington, where they're at right now, they're in a nice spot. They're in a good situation right now. Now they have Seaholm coming up, which is going to be a big, big game for them. That could decide the division. That could decide the division. We'll see what happens. But that game could decide it. And then we look at Seaholm and in Oak Park. This was a good game. This was a really good game. And Oak Park started up fast. They started up 13-3 early on. Had things in control. And then Seaholm decided to start playing. And Patrick Hughes started showing up and took over that game. Because between the second and fourth quarters, Seaholm outscored Oak Park 21-8. So that kind of tells you something right there. 21-8 in the fourth quarter. No, between the second and fourth quarters. And Seaholm won 24-21 in a really good game in the fourth. As I said, Patrick Hughes, the real deal quarterback. I know last year he split time. Coach Jim Dewall's got that thing figured out over there. Really does. Running the veer offense there. And then connecting to Will Forsberg on what would be the winning touchdown for Seaholm. Surprised how Oak Park defended that. But still, you know, you kind of think about it. A lot of head scratching in that game. You got to give Seaholm credit. For Oak Park, more than likely their championship hopes in the blue have been damaged. Really damaged. I mean, they've been competitive. But they had that rough loss to Farmington week 1. That's really been the story. The damaged loss week 1 to Farmington. And then this one to Seaholm. They lost both their league games by a combined 8 points. That says something right there. They had chances to win this game. So if you're Coach Greg Carter, you're basically telling your team, you know what I mean? We had a great chance to win this division. We didn't finish. We really didn't finish. So when I look at the division right now in the blue, I would say Seaholm, Farmington. I would put North Farmington third, Troy fourth. I have to take it back. I would take that back. I would say right now, Seaholm, Farmington, North Farmington, Oak Park, Troy, Athens, Blueberry Hills right now. That's my take right now in the division. That's my take in the blue. And that's really what it is right now. So, we'll see what happens going forward in this division. But right now, that's my take in the division. And then, let's look at the gold. The gold division. Royal Oak knocked off Livonia Clarenceville 38-6. This might be the first time that I've probably seen in a long time Royal Oak play their best game against somebody not named Pontiac. Here's why. Because Royal Oak last season had a really tough loss in Livonia. They had a really, really tough loss. They had a really one. They had a tough one. But for Royal Oak, they had it on cruise control. They were up 32-0 at one point. They were dominating on both sides of football. Offensively, defensively, special teams. That might have been, I think, Royal Oak's best game that they played in maybe over 5 years. And that says something. If Royal Oak can keep playing that brand of consistency football, where their defense is playing lights out and shutting down opponents, they could surprise some people. But, but the problem for Coach Colin Campbell's program has been consistency. Royal Oak has not been a consistent program. I mean, that's the biggest problem that they face. And right now, when you look at Royal Oak, I mean, yes, the win against Livonia Clarenceville is huge. Yes, they sit at 2-2. I think they're either 2-2 or 1-3. I gotta look. But for Royal Oak, getting a win against somebody, actually no, they're 2-2. They're 2-2. They had that win against Lakeshore. They're 2-0 home, 0-2 on the road. Now Royal Oak's got to learn to win on the road. They got to learn to win on the road. I think their next home game is the Battle of Woodward which is Berkeley. Oh boy. Oh boy. We know how those games get. They get really emotional fast. So Royal Oak right now, we don't know what Raven team we're going to get. We really don't know. So there's some question marks with Royal Oak. There is some big time question marks. Especially hanging in that game. Because it is a big, big game for both teams. So we'll see what happens. Avondale got their first win of the year, knocking off Pontiac 34-14. In a game that was dominated by Avondale's defense, who had a pick six for a touchdown, very efficient on that side of the ball. Offensively, there's still some question marks under Coach Jim Carlisle. It's his first win as head coach at Avondale. So the defense looked somewhat better. Now, albeit Pontiac is a different, Pontiac right now, they've been struggling. I mean, they're making progress. I mean, they're scoring points. So that is a positive for Coach Wendell Jefferson and Pontiac and the Phoenix. They are scoring points. I mean, defensively, they still got a lot to work on. So Pontiac, I think, is going to be fine. I think they're going to be okay. But in the case of Avondale, yes, you got your first win of the year. That is a big, big win for you. But you got some big question marks, especially on defense. The 14 points allowed, that's fine. 14 points allowed. But still, it's not like what's happened the last 3 weeks where you're giving over 101 points. You got a lot to clean up if you're Avondale. 34 points against Pontiac. They needed a game like that to turn this thing around quickly. They needed a game like this playing on a Saturday afternoon, but they needed a game like that. Because if they didn't, it would have been trouble, it would have been rough, and it would have been more challenging to already a season that's been already challenging enough for this team. So there's a lot of question marks with Avondale. And they still got a tough schedule. They got to play Ferndale. They got to play Berkeley. They got to play Carleton Airport to close out the year. I think they still got Stony Creek on that schedule. So they got it brutal. They have it very difficult heading into the final few weeks of the season. If you're Coach Jim Carlisle, you're gonna have to tell him, okay, we got that first win off our backs. Now we're gonna have to gut it out a little bit. We're gonna have to step up, because if we're gonna be a player in this division, we're gonna have to really start playing some good football. And Avondale, last 3 weeks prior to that game against Pontiac, had not been playing really good football. So there's a lot of question marks when you look at the Yellow Jackets. So that's the challenge for Coach Carlisle, is can he get this program heading in the right direction? That is the big question mark. And then let's look at the team that's leading the division right now, and that's the Ferndale Eagles. Ferndale and Berkeley basically had the clash in the de facto gold championship game, where Ferndale won that one 26-14 at Hurley Field. And this was a tight game. Ferndale started off up 12-0. Then the third quarter came. Berkeley ended up scoring 2 touchdowns, took a 14-12 lead heading in the fourth quarter. And then Ferndale got some multiple turnovers, ended up leading the touchdowns, and ended up winning that one 26-14. So let's look at Berkeley first before I talk Ferndale. Berkeley made some strides. I know they had that Pontiac game. They won 43-0. They made some strides against Ferndale. Ferndale, we know, is a young team, but they've somehow got it figured out. Berkeley, they battled. They battled in that game. They looked like a completely different team than from 2 weeks ago, where they just looked lost. They looked lost. So Berkeley's got some things turned around a little bit. They still got to go play Jackson Northwest. That's going to be very interesting. And we know how good the Mounties are. They're not a bad team. They're not bad. So, we'll see what happens with them. We'll see what happens. And then, you look at Ferndale. The Eagles. You look at that team, and they've got things figured out quickly. They're starting to play much better. They've got it turned around quick. So that's a big deal for Ferndale, for the Eagles. Big, big deal. So right now, when I look at the Gold Division right now, and even though Ferndale's got a very tough schedule to close out the year, they got it difficult. The 3 Wayne counties to close out the year. And you got River Rouge, Harper Woods, Detroit Renaissance. Oh, boy. Oh, Nelly. So that's going to be a challenge for them going forward. We'll see what happens. Right now, when I look at the Gold Division, I would say right now, Ferndale, Berkeley, Royal Oak, Avondale, Pontiac right now. That's what my take is right now in the Gold right now. That's my take in that division. So we'll see what happens. See what happens. Then we'll look at, of course, Kettering and Mott. Kettering, of course, we mentioned earlier in the podcast, fell 51-14 to South Lyon East. It was the last game for Coach Brian Barnes, coaching the captains. As I mentioned, Kettering's defense, that's the story. If you're Coach Cullen Conway, you got to get that fixed quick. If you can't, you're in trouble. That's really what it is. And Kettering's already been in trouble. They've been in some trouble for a long time, especially with this defense. They've got to shore it up quick. If not, then it's going to be the same story. It's going to be the same story in the league when they look forward in the Lakes Valley. And they still got to play Walled Lake Western. You still got to play South Lyon. I mean, it's going to be rough. It'll be very rough. And then the upset, one of the big upsets, was Pontiac Notre Dame Prep Waterford Mott. I could not believe this one. 53-19. What in the world is going on with Waterford Mott's defense? What is going on? 87 points in 2 weeks. 43.5 points against. That's not winning football. If your Coach Trajan say, you got to fix this. You still control your own destiny in the Lakes Valley Conference. You still have a good enough offense to win this conference. But your defense has to shore things up. Because if they don't, they're in trouble. They have to shore things up. Last 2 weeks against Walled Lake Western and Pontiac Notre Dame Prep, it's not been good for them. It has not been good. You shore things up there, you're going to be fine. If not, you're in trouble. That's the bottom line. And you still got to play South Lyon, which that's going to be a big game for you. That'll be a big, big game for Waterford Mott. We'll see what happens. You still have playmakers. You still have Gino Sheets at quarterback. You have Torrey Robinson. You still got Max Van Jenden missing. Play both sides of the ball. You're healthy. See what happens going forward. They got to shore some things up over at Waterfront. They got to shore some things up a little bit. Everybody signing off here. Make sure you follow the blog at Sagame46Media@blogspot.com. Also around the OAA on Weebly. Of course, around the OAA at Weebly.com. Keep an eye on everything going around the OAA and also picks for the week around the conference. So everybody signing off here. Take care. God bless. And I'll see you all next week. Take care and I'll see you then. God bless. God bless.